It's Goldwings42 here with Chapter 5 of Learning How to Live Again, Am I Truly Worth It by Nstlgia on AO3. This is a re-recording of the chapter because last time I recorded, I stumbled over, I'd have to say, like a quarter of everything, and I sounded depressed, so that's fun. Yeah, sorry if there's like some road noise or a screaming child in this. I cannot control either of those things. So, yeah. I'm gonna go ahead with the notes, but before that, I have a quick question. Do you guys like me reading Nstlgia's notes before I get into the chapter, or would you rather I just skip those altogether? Let me know in the comments. And that's it. Alright, here are her notes. First of all, thank you all for the kudos and the hits. I really appreciate it. It makes me so happy to see other people enjoying what I write. Second of all, big shoutouts to Call Me Airy for the vigilante name Akagni. In case you didn't see or read or hear their comment, it's a mix of red, Aka, and justness, Segni, referring to his red shoes equals quirklessness. An awesome and very creative name I wouldn't have been able to come up with. All credits of the name to them. And those were the notes. So, on with the fic. Izuku was nervously pacing the rooftop, muttering to himself under his breath. He was technically earlier than he usually arrived, but still, he wanted Eraserhead to get here now. He was also so caught up in his own head that he didn't realize when Eraserhead arrived until the whoosh of his capture weapon sounded near his face. Izuku jumped and turned to face the hero. I tried saying your name, but you weren't budging, he explained. Izuku sighed and rubbed his hands over his face, still stressed. Really? I'm surprised you didn't just outright arrest me, he challenged, nerves fluttering in his stomach. Eraserhead didn't rise to the bait, which made him even more irritated. Instead of saying anything else, though, Izuku let out a breath and continued pacing, but slower. It was the only other way to get rid of his nervous energy. After a few moments of tense silence, Izuku finally spoke up. What you did wasn't fair, he started. Eraserhead looked like he was about to speak, and Izuku held up a hand. He wouldn't be able to do this if he was interrupted. Thankfully, and shockingly, Eraserhead shut his mouth. After sitting with what you said, I partially understand where you're coming from. I get it, I'm a mess. I don't have the resources or backup of a normal pro hero has, but I didn't start doing this just to be reckless, or I don't know, because I'm a teenager and teenagers do dumb shit. I've been doing this for almost a year now, and I haven't perished. Yet. Izuku stopped pacing, shoving his hands shakily into his sweatshirt pocket. He took a few deep breaths, preparing himself for the next part of his speech. I trusted you, Eraser. You're probably the only pro hero I've come across, or will come across, that I have given that trust to. You gave me a chance when no one else has ever... He stopped, looking away when Eraserhead's eyebrows scrunched in a weird, half-concerned, half-calculating face he did. So, yeah, hearing what you said hurt. It scared me, okay? More than running into a villain stronger than me, or putting myself in a position where I could possibly get severely injured. It felt like you didn't trust me anymore, which, I know, sounds stupid. Why would a fully trained pro hero trust a kid? But I don't know. Maybe I was delusional, and this has just been strictly business. As Izuku cut himself off again, he could feel tears rising and his throat closing, so he cleared it and steeled himself so no tears would fall. Anyways, it was unfair for you to hold that over me, no matter what your intention was, and, well, I wasn't being completely honest about going somewhere else. I will. Izuku was still shaking by the end. He had never stood up for himself against an adult, and while he knew Eraserhead wasn't like his teachers or his mom, to his knowledge at least, he didn't know how he would respond to this. He was silent for a long time, and he didn't know if that was because Eraserhead was thinking about what to say, or if he was making internal plans to keep Izuku off the streets. He crossed his arms in front of his chest defensively just as Eraserhead started to talk. "You're right, it wasn't fair, and I apologize for that." Izuku looked at him, eyes wide. "What?" Eraserhead held his hand up, mirroring Izuku's exact position from earlier. "My turn." He promptly closed his mouth and nodded for him to continue. "However, you are wrong about one thing. I don't see this as strictly business. Sure, it's technically my job to keep you safe, but it goes beyond that. As inconvenient as it may seem to you, there's a reason I'm always harping on you about your lack of safety. Granted, vigilantism and heroism in general are not safe, but you should sure like to go above and beyond. But, yes, going after your identity was a step too far. I understand that. I broke any resemblance of trust you had in me, which, regardless of what you think, I do hold in high regard. You're not just a teenager doing dumb shit. You have potential, honestly, more than my own students." He grumbled the last part that had Izuku reeling. He's a teacher? Wait, potential? This conversation was giving him mental whiplash. "And if that makes you feel any better, Tsukauchi did yell at me for acting stupidly," Eraserhead said, to which Izuku huffed out a laugh. "Yeah, he texted me about it too. It's kind of worrying that you message with him regularly." Izuku waved his hand. "Don't get jealous, he texts me more rarely than you do." Eraserhead rolled his eyes. Izuku relaxed, and his hand stopped shaking. His nerves weren't sky high anymore. This conversation wasn't how he expected it to go, but in a good way, it was probably the most Eraser had spoken to him in one go-around. In the silence, Izuku processed what Eraser had said to him. He knew Eraserhead was being sincere. The hero pretty much never lied to him when it counted, but also an adult apologizing to him? There was always a first for everything. "I accept your apology, and thank you for what you said. Izuku sighed. "Like I said, what you did hurt. I was terrified to go out thinking you would be, come out of the shadows and bring me to the police station. I understand now that you wouldn't do that." Mary said, corrected in confirmation. "I know. I didn't think what I said was completely wrong, though." When Izuku tensed, Eraserhead clarified, "Not the part about finding you. I mean that you have to take care of yourself. I can tell. Even with that hoodie on, you're probably on the brink of malnourishment. It also shows, though, through your endurance. It may also have to do with you being a child, but if you want to continue doing this, you need to take care of yourself properly." Well, damn. It's like the dude was right, because there was only so much he could do right now. Yeah, I know. I'm trying, but Izuku trailed off. He was unsure if he wanted to disclose his financial situation to Eraser. Not all kids lived affluent lives, but there was something so uncomfortably vulnerable about having that talk with him for some reason. Suddenly, Eraser's voice broke through his thoughts. Catch. He threw something at Izuku, and he caught it, mentally thanking his fast reflexes. It was small, rectangular bento box. Raising a brow, he looked up at Eraserhead, confused. "What is this?" "A bento." Izuku rolled his eyes at Eraser's frustrating response. "Why are you giving this to me?" "Because my partner brought too many groceries and I had extra. Eat." Surprised Eraser would give up that kind of information, he accepted the excuse and sat down, crossing his legs and opening the bento up on his lap. The information hit him when he saw the food inside. Partner, grocery shopping? It looked a lot like the food another certain pro hero had in his cart the other day. Could Present Mike and Eraserhead be? No, surely not. But the more he thought about it, the more it started to make sense. They both showed up in the same-ish area. Yamada was talking about a partner that loved coffee. Eraserhead vaguely mentioned a we when naming the cat, and now just confirmed that he did have a partner. They were total opposites, but hey, opposites attract, right? It was also a little convenient that Yamada asked him for his opinions on things during his shopping, and now that food was showing up in the bento given to him, Izuku's heart rate spiked as the thought that the heroes did know who he was, and if Yamada was Eraser's partner, he would have mentioned Shadow at some point, wouldn't he? However, Eraser had said he didn't go after his identity. If he knew Izuku was Shadow, wouldn't he say so? Izuku didn't think Eraser was the type of person to drag it on like this if he knew. Anyways, Izuku was enjoying the free food, as always. Eraser was still standing off to the side, not saying anything. It was a bit creepy, if he was being honest. He wondered why he didn't just start his patrol. He finished the food and threw the empty bento back to Eraserhead, who caught it and slipped it somewhere in his utility belt. Was the thing bottomless? Izuku got up and stretched his arms above his head. So your partner is the cook? Eraserhead gave him a look. We both are. How do they handle your weird work schedule? Izuku was not 100% sure of Yamada being his partner and didn't want Eraser to think he had any information on his love life. Are we playing 20 questions now? Because I think it would be fair if we both asked questions. The hero deadpanned. Izuku sighed. You always have to take the fun out of it, he pouted. Maybe he was mistaken, but Izuku thought he caught a glimpse of Eraserhead smiling before he hid his face in his capture weapon. Before they could go on their respective patrols, Izuku stopped him in his tracks. Oh, also, I know I'm always complaining about the name Shouta, so I did a bit of thinking, and I really want to go by Academy now. It sounds 10 times cooler, and it actually means something. Eraserhead just nodded. If that's what you want, just prepare to be repeating that name constantly for at least a few weeks before people catch on. Yeah, that's what I'm worried about. Hey, maybe you could tell Tsukauchi so if an officer is trying to, come after me, at least they'll know who I am now. Go on, Eraser said, with a roll of his eyes, taking off in the opposite direction. Then Izuku usually started his patrol. That wasn't a no, Izuku grumbled, and dropped off the side of the building. Later on, Izuku ruminated on the conversation with Eraserhead. He felt good about it. There was the lingering shame of betrayal, but it was a lot duller now. He knew that with time he could trust Eraserhead again. He was just that kind of hero. There was also the point of Eraser potentially knowing who he was, along with his alleged husband, Yamada. Why else would he make the effort to talk to some random kid because he thought he worked at a cafe the hero went to? Suspicious, and a bit too convenient for him. Though, as long as they kept it to themselves for now, he didn't plan to expose him. That was fine. He wasn't sure if he could handle another investigation into his home life. Speaking of home, he'd already been searching for apartments in the red light district. Sure, not the safest place to live, but because of that, the apartments were generally cheaper, and not as many questions would be asked about a kid renting his own place. Plus, his patrols would be a lot easier to get to. The only downside was that it would be a longer walk to his job, and it would especially suck if he had a morning shift. He could probably get a bike or something. After sunset night, though, Eraserhead arrived with a bento full of food, and Izuku mostly ate every single thing. It was good. Whether it was Yamada making the food or Eraser himself, they were talented. Honestly, it was a godsend. Izuku hadn't tasted such flavorful food in a long time, probably ever since his mom cooked for him last. When he got Katsuki in one of the bentos, it almost brought him to tears. Eraser had never watched him eat, which was nice, because it was annoying to try and shove his food under his mask. The downside was that his eating habits got a little messed up, even more than they were, and eating that much so late at night made him develop a bit of an aversion to food during the day, so in an effort to make him healthier, it kind of had the opposite effect. Not that it was Eraserhead's fault at all, it was all Izuku. Because of his suspicions, Izuku remained strictly cordial with Yamada whenever the man came into the cafe. He only saw him 2 more times in that environment, and because of Izuku's lack of enjoyment of social outings, he didn't see him anywhere else for now. Another upside of Eraserhead bringing him food, he didn't have to go out for grocery shopping as often. He felt bad, especially when Izuku dodged Yamada's clearly pointed questions aimed to find out more about him, like where he went to school or what his parents did while he was working. The man's radiant smile would dim, and Izuku would feel a sharp pain in his chest as if physically wounded. Why did he care so much anyways? Yamada was potentially after his identity. He shouldn't feel bad for attacking himself. Who is that guy anyways? A voice came from his right. Izuku glanced over to Shinsou, who was making a drink from one of their customers. Who? Izuku asked, confused. The blonde guy who looks like Sunshine Incarnate. He always tries talking to you, like you know him. Oh, his name's Yamada. I ran into him at the grocery store a week or so ago, and he just liked to strike up conversation, I guess, Izuku explained vaguely. Is he, stalking you or something? Shinsou looked at him, concerned. Izuku couldn't help but laugh. You have no idea. No, I just ran into him, and he recognized me, that's all. Shinsou looked at him wearily for a second too long, and Izuku's smile faded. What? The purple-haired boy shook out of it, clearing his throat and turning back to the coffee he was preparing. It's nothing. Weird, he thought, but didn't bring it up. They returned to their normal routine until it was time to leave. Today, he and Shinsou ended at the same time. Izuku was going to say goodbye, as he usually did when they came up to the spike in the road, but Shinsou stopped him. Do you want to exchange numbers? Izuku was surprised. Were they friends? It was a heartwarming thought, but that probably turned sour when he remembered how he hadn't told Shinsou yet that he was quirkless. He didn't want to, but he also didn't want to keep it from him anymore. Shinsou deserved to know, and if it made work awkward, or worse, hostile, well, he could deal with it. He's dealt with worse. He must have taken too long to respond because Shinsou looked away, embarrassed. We don't have to. No, I do. There's just, I should tell you some. He was cut off by a loud, angry voice. Deku! Izuku's heart sank, and his whole body froze. He turned to face Bakugou, who was making his way over with a scowl on his face. Instinctively, Izuku took a small step back, closer to Shinsou. Bakugou, why are you here? Bakugou's eyebrows lifted in surprise. Maybe at the lack of childhood nickname, but they quickly furrowed back into a scornful expression. I should be asking you that. Why in the hell aren't you in school anymore? I don't believe that old tag explanation. You don't come around with the anti-Inko anymore either. What's going on? He shouted, catching the attention of passers-by. Izuku's cheeks heated in embarrassment as he remembered that Shinsou was also a witness to this. What I told Mitsuki-san was the truth. We're just busy. And why do you even care? Aren't you happy the worthless Deku isn't bothering you anymore? Izuku fired back. It was like he could see the steam rising from Bakugou's ears with how mad he was. Oh, he was actually steaming from his hands. Shinsou chose that moment to step in. Dude, relax. You don't have to be so aggressive, he said, gesturing to Bakugou's hands. Bakugou growled at him. No one asked you eye bags, he spat. Izuku covered his mouth with his hand to stifle a laugh. Eye bags? Okay, accurate. Shinsou just looked bewildered, but Bakugou turned his attention back to Izuku, and any lingering amusement vanished. I don't care, but the old heck isn't letting it go, so are you going to answer me? Bakugou demanded, with all the confidence of someone who always got their way. Izuku took a shuddering breath before he said, No, just leave me alone, Bakugou, okay? It had the opposite effect he wanted. Bakugou's hands were sparking now, and he was only angry. You think you can look down on me, you quirkless freak? He yelled, his hands raised and aimed at Izuku as if he was going to use his quirk on him. Izuku's eyes widened and he flinched backwards, terrified. How come he could fight villains 10 times more terrifying than Bakugou, yet he cowered at the rise of his childhood friend's hands? Shinsou shoved Bakugou backwards, and the shock of it extinguished any flames in his palms, and his ire was turned on the purple-haired boy instead. What are you, a flaming Pomeranian? Shinsou scoffed. Bakugou bristled. What did you call? His eyes suddenly clouded over, his frame slack. Leave us alone and go home or something, Shinsou said, and Izuku was very confused when Bakugou complied. It was the calmest he had ever seen him. When Bakugou turned the corner, Shinsou faced Izuku, concern written on his face. Are you okay? Izuku was still reeling from the fact that Bakugou so easily left when told. How? Shinsou looked suddenly sheepish. His hand rubbed the back of his neck. My quirk. I can control anyone who responds to me. So far, I can only do it when I ask them a direct question. Izuku's mouth shaped into an O. That's so cool, he explained, as if the previous interaction never happened. Does your quirk make a connection from your brain to theirs? How long can it be activated for? Do you think you could ever control someone without a verbal response? Shinsou looked shocked. Izuku stopped his rambling. Shit, sorry. You don't have to answer any of that. I didn't mean to... Dude, no, it's fine. No one's ever actually taken an interest. They mostly call me a freak or insult me in some way. Oh, well, you're not, a freak. Your quirk is really cool. Izuku mumbled and looked away, his fists clenched. Bakugou called him quirkless, and surely Shinsou would have heard him. Thanks, Shinsou said with a light laugh. So, you still want to trade phone numbers? Izuku looked at him surprised. Do you still want to, even after? He trailed off, not sure how to bring it up. What, a school bully? Got plenty of those. You saw them at work, Shinsou said with a shrug. Izuku shook his head. No, the quirkless thing, he forced out. The words bitter on his tongue. As you expected Shinsou to look disgusted, maybe leave him there, politely tell him to forget about exchanging numbers. Instead, he just frowned. Why would I care about that? You're cool, that's all I care about, Shinsou responded. Izuku was dumbfounded. Was it really that simple? While Izuku was contemplating his life, Shinsou shoved a phone into his hand. Here, type your number into the top bar, Shinsou instructed. Okay. Izuku stuttered and typed it out before handing the phone back to Shinsou. Great, I'll see you around? At Izuku's nod, Shinsou left, presumably to go home. Izuku thought over their conversation, still shocked at how lackadaisical Shinsou acted when he found out he was quirkless. He supposed Shinsou was more understanding because how he was treated for his quirk. When Izuku got back to the apartment, his phone buzzed. He took it out to see a couple of messages from an unknown number. I realized I never answered your questions. 1. My quirk does create a connection between me and the person I control. Not sure if it's between our brains, though. 2. So far I can use my quirk for 2 minutes without getting a headache, but the person has to be doing simple menial tasks. Your friend there pushed my limits a bit. 3. Hopefully, that would be ideal. Izuku couldn't help but smile. He saved Shinsou's number and texted him back. These answers will be useful for our next experiment. Experiment? Izuku turned his phone off with no further explanation. Izuku and Shinsou had been regularly texting ever since they exchanged numbers. It was nice to have an actual friend who didn't care about it. Quirk status. His phone was getting more use than it had been since he got it. He was currently at the library reading books about quirk theory and intro to fighting techniques. He didn't go to school anymore, but there was no harm in furthering his education. As he thought, he had a library card from when he was younger. Since it hadn't been used in years, though, he got a new one that was probably going to utilize a lot more. It was a great way to pass the time, and it got his mind off other things. He was writing some more notes down for his vigilante self, and some about other quirks he found fascinating, like Shinsou's. As he was in his own world, the sound of books dropping on the table across from him startled him. He looked up to find Shinsou staring back at him with a smirk. Funny seeing you here. What are you working on? He asked in a hushed tone before sitting across from him. Shinsou, hey, nothing, he mumbled before hiding his notebook underneath the book. Shinsou raised a brow, clearly not believing him, but not pushing it either. Well, I have a ton of homework to finish before tonight. Mind if I join you? Izuku shook his head. Not at all. They both went back to their respective assignments, and Izuku made sure to hide his writing behind his book. He could see Shinsou peeking over every so often, though, and Izuku decided to take another risk. Do you want to see? He asked, and Shinsou perked up as if caught. If you don't want to show me, that's okay. Izuku shrugged and passed it over, showing some notes he took on Shinsou's quirk. You can be honest and tell me if it's creepy. I like making notes on quirks I find cool. His hands were shaking slightly when Shinsou took the notebook from him. Shinsou's eyebrows raised with each sentence. Izuku got more and more anxious when he didn't say anything. Just as Izuku was sure this would be the end of their friendship, Shinsou glanced at him. Holy shit, you wrote all of this from what I told you? Izuku nodded tentatively as he wrung his hands together in his nervousness. Dude, this is way more than I ever thought about my quirk. And all these theories, this is what you mean by experiments? That was mostly a joke, but yeah? Your quirk is perfect for underground hero work. I don't know how you feel about going into underground, but I think it would make sense to keep your quirk secret as much as possible from the public so that villains can't counter it. Shinsou's breath hitched slightly, his eyes fluttering. You think my quirk is perfect for hero work? Izuku nodded. Yeah, one word and you could stop a villain from doing virtually anything as long as you train your quirk. That's why I think it would be great to work you up to controlling someone without getting a direct response. Maybe even acknowledgement of your words, and that would be enough. Shinsou was quiet again for a little while. His jaw clenched, and his eyes were on the table. Sorry, was that too much? Izuku asked, worried. No, Shinsou started and stopped. Izuku let him take his time. At first, that's when quirk manifested. I was looking at it as if it was a monster. I used it on my mother accidentally when I was 4. I asked her for a toy. He got himself off with a scoff. I don't remember what it was. It was stupid, but I really wanted it. She said no, I think that's must have manifested there, because next thing I know, she looked like a zombie, but she was buying me whatever I asked for. I was ecstatic, thinking she had some change of heart. Then I realized how much my head hurt. It was terrible, worse than any other migraine I get nowadays. I blacked out, and when I woke up, we were back at home. My mom was terrified, and my father furious. They said I was an abomination, that I took my mother's free will away from her. They couldn't have someone like me in their house, so they got rid of me, put me up in an adoption center. As you could empathize with Shinsou, to some extent at least, he wasn't given away, but everything in his life changed for the worse after his diagnosis. I've been in and out of homes practically my whole life. Every time someone finds out about my quirk, they react with mostly fear or disgust. I get sent back within days. I've been laughed at and mocked any time I would bring up my dream of being a hero. For a long time, it's been mostly out of spite to prove them wrong, but even that has diminished. I haven't really thought of going that route for a while. No one's ever believed in me, but you... Shinsou laughed its believing laugh. All those theories, what you said about it being perfect for hero work, after being called a villain my whole life, that's honestly the nicest thing I've ever heard. Izuku didn't really know what to say. Again, he could relate to a lot of what Shinsou was saying. He wanted someone to believe in him too, and while he had almost told Eraserhead that he was that person, he still didn't know about his quirklessness, so it wasn't exactly the same to him. But if he could be that person for someone else, that was fine. He gave Shinsou a small smile. Like I said, quirks aren't inherently villainous. Your actions are what matter. His voice turned more serious. And I'm really sorry about what you went through, Shinsou. You were a kid. There's no way you could have known what your quirk was doing. You didn't deserve to be treated that way. You still don't. Shinsou's eyes were glassy and he looked away while clearing his throat. Hitoshi, he said. What? Call me Hitoshi. It's only fair at this point. Izuku's face flushed. Oh, okay. Call me Izuku then. They spent the rest of their time going over different quirk theories. Hitoshi probably never finished the rest of his homework. And that's the end of the chapter. We got some endnotes real quick. It's really short. Some Hitoshi and Izuku softness, because why not? Word of the day, lackadaisical. Great word. And yeah, that's the end of the chapter. Pretty good, as always. If you liked this, go give kudos to Nstlgia on AO3 if you haven't already. Hey, it's mid-editing, Goldwings42 here, and I'm just saying sorry for the audio quality throughout the entirety of the rest of this recording. It was worse than I wanted it to be, but I don't want to re-record it another time, so we're just gonna have to deal with it until I re-record it again. If I ever do. So long, farewell. If you liked my recording, likes, subscriptions, comments, the YouTube stuff, always appreciated. And, yeah, take care of yourself, drink water, eat food, take your meds, get sleep, all the things. Peace out.